Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you like this episode, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment or two, then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications of whenever we release new videos. Also, please remember to share them to your social media. Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Today's episode takes us to the heart of southern India. Yes, we've visited India before, but this episode is very unusual indeed. The city of Mysore is seated toward the southern tip of the continent and is overshadowed by Chamundi Hill, which rises about 1,000 feet above its surroundings. The slopes of this hill are crowded with jungles and ravines, the perfect place for a stealthy predator to scrape out a living. Atop this hill is Chimundi Temple, which holds a significant spiritual power and cultural importance to practitioners of the Hindu faith. It is said that the Goddess Durga triumphed over the demon king Mahishasura on the top of the hill which he ruled. It is in this setting that our episode takes place. In 1957, the locals south of Bengalore became acquainted with a sloth bear that was not particularly afraid of them. As you may know, sloth bears are nearly exclusively herbivorous, meaning that they eat mostly fruits, nuts, or plants, but they also eat termites and other insects. They may have been known to regularly raid wild beehives and eat the honey, but that is usually the extent of their aggression. The sloth bear that the locals had run-ins with didn't have the usual disposition of the average sloth bear. This bear had spent most of its time up on the boulder-strewn slopes, avoiding people, and doing the usual sloth bear activities of food gathering and beehive raiding. Somehow this bear had developed the habit of descending the slopes and searching out food in the lower areas near the human population. As it foraged among the villages and farms nearby, it apparently lost its fear and respect for humans. The first reported attack happened near the city of Bengalore in the Nagvara Hills. Wherever the bear found humans, it would become extremely aggressive. In some instances, the bear would see people at far-off distances and run them down to attack them. This fact removed the notion that the bear was attacking people who happened upon it and surprised it, forcing a defensive attack. Most of the 24 survivors of the bear attacks would come away missing parts of their face. The bear would use its large canines to grip the structure of the face and skull of its victims, then use its long claws, fashioned for breaking into hard termite mounds, to rip the victims' noses from their face, or sometimes it would tear their cheeks or eyes from their place. For their size, the canine teeth of a sloth bear are larger than any other species and would inflict as much damage on victims as its claws, if not more. Every survivor of an attack by this bear was subject to a life of pain and deformation after a confrontation. This bear also killed 12 people, on top of the previously mentioned maulings. The bear partially consumed at least 3 of its victims, and some of the people it killed had their faces completely removed from their skulls during the attack. Many of them went unreported until far too late to locate the specific bear that was responsible, until the bear killed a young man connected to a professional hunter. The swath of death and destruction was first brought to the attention of professional hunter Kenneth Anderson, who was a British citizen frequenting the productive hunting grounds of India. A Muslim friend of Anderson's by the name of Alam Books had written a postcard to Anderson requesting his help in ridding the area of the predatory and deadly bear after it had killed his son. The young man was only 22 years old and had accidentally run into the bear as he was walking along a road around 9 p.m. Unbeknownst to the young man, the road to the shrine he was walking was lined with fig trees planted by the shrine attendees, and they were shedding their fruit. They had also planted a field of peanuts near the trees, which the bear loved to forage amongst. The sloth bear displayed its growing aggression on the young man by mauling him to death, prompting the postcard from Books. Anderson considered hunting the sloth bear to be much easier than other animals he'd successfully stalked and killed, such as leopards and tigers. He'd already built a renowned reputation as a prolific hunter of man-eaters of various species, and considered this hunt to be a mundane effort. Given these details, Anderson didn't prepare for an extended hunt, and only gathered his .405 Winchester hunting rifle and a flashlight, plus an extra change of clothes. The first time he set out to find the bear, he gathered input from the locals in the area. They gladly provided the areas in which the sloth bear had been seen foraging for peanuts and figs. Anderson used this information and established night patrols to try to intercept the bear while it was traveling to its frequented food sources. This bear was apparently going to take more work for Anderson, as the patrols produced nothing, no leads, and certainly no dead bear. The locals next directed him to a cave in the area they believed to be the bear's den. The party eagerly arrived at the cave and discussed how they may be able to rouse the bruin without risking an attack themselves. They decided to hurl rocks into the cave and see if they could elicit a response from the bear. As they threw the stones, they would listen for any sign of movement or growling or any other reaction. This effort was fruitless as well, and they went back to the drawing board. His efforts stymied, Anderson headed back to Bengalore and requested that the villagers notify him immediately if the bear attacked anyone else. For several weeks all was quiet and well. The villagers reported no problems from the bear, and no humans were attacked or killed. Near the village of Sakrapatna, 2 loggers were out harvesting timber for sale. They had ventured into the woods to find good timber when the bear ambushed them while they worked. One of the loggers was killed before his friend could save him, and the other was severely mauled by the bear before it departed the scene of the attack. Guards from the regional forest office immediately sent notification to Anderson that the bear had struck again. He requested the coordinates of the bear's latest attack, which took an additional 10 days in response. The bear used this time span to attack a 3rd forest guard while he was out on patrol. After receiving the requested information as well as the update on the latest attack, Anderson immediately headed out to the Mysore area. He set up camp at a small dwelling owned by the forest department. At around 4:30 p.m. that afternoon, a local villager came running up, out of breath, to report that his own brother had been attacked by the bear near a place the locals thought he lived. His brother was tending his grazing cattle near the bear's lair on a hill about 3 miles from the village. Anderson rounded up his hunting team and some local guides and immediately embarked on the 6-mile hike into the location. As the party approached the target area, many of the local guides declined to go any further out of fear of a confrontation with the bear. Incredibly, Anderson elected to pursue the bear by himself and left the rest of his hunting party where they stood. After forcing his way through thick brush, Anderson could hear a faint moan. As he followed the sound, it led him to the wounded man laying in a pool of his own blood, leaning up against a tree. The man was suffering from the typical severe head wounds sloth bears in general, and this bear specifically, was known to inflict on its victims. The man couldn't walk and was fading in and out of consciousness, so Anderson decided to try to carry him out to seek medical attention. As he was carrying the wounded man, Anderson sprained his ankle severely and could not continue, rendering both him and his wounded acquaintance incapacitated, at least in part. As Anderson administered first aid to the wounded man and himself, a small party of the forest guard stumbled upon them and evacuated them to the hospital at Chimundi. Unfortunately for the wounded man, he would succumb to his wounds by 5 a.m. before life-saving efforts could begin. Anderson lay up in the hospital for a week, healing from his wounds, but the bear attacked 2 more people walking along a trail near Ayankir Lake during that time. After his ankle was healed, Anderson headed back to Sakrapatna, where locals reported to have seen the bear foraging in fields surrounded by boram trees, several hundred yards from the village. Anderson decided to change his approach to hunting the bear. All of his efforts to catch it in its normal habits simply led to it appearing several miles away and wreaking havoc there, before disappearing again. Knowing that once a bear finds food in a location, it will frequently return regularly, even if there is not a reliable source of food there. Since he knew of a place where the bear routinely found food, he would post up there overnight and wait the bear out. It would be bound to turn up on its regular routes in search of food and may offer a chance to stop the carnage of the attacks it wrought. Anderson arrived at the location around 5 p.m. and set up an observation post overlooking the field at which the bear was known to dig up peanuts. He carefully positioned himself beneath a large boram tree and planned to spend the night waiting. After 6 long hours, with his rifle and flashlight watching the field as the moon set an eerie glow across the land, the dark shapes danced in his imagination as the shadows seemed to stalk him while he waited. In the distance, Anderson could hear the bear digging for roots and searching for food. After another hour of waiting and listening, Anderson heard a rustling in the bushes just a few yards from his position and figured the bear was approaching the boram tree he was hiding beneath. He quickly grabbed his flashlight and pointed it toward the rustling. Flicking on the switch, he could see the sloth bear was startled by the sudden source of light aimed at him. It stood up on its hind legs for a better view and to engage any threats it perceived. As it stood, it offered Anderson an excellent shot, and he placed a bullet right through the man-killer's heart, dropping it quickly to the earth. As word of the death of the violent sloth bear made its rounds to villages in the area, a mythos sprang up around the bear's behavior. Some postulated that the bear was a female robbed of her cubs by men hell-bent on retribution on the species responsible for her pain. Others offered that it was a male bear who had fallen in love with a woman and kidnapped her from a village. When hunters found her and returned her safely to her home, the bear went on a rampage out of lovesickness. Anderson proposed a more common sense theory that perhaps the bear had been injured in a way that forced a change to its eating habits. Other observers have a more spiritual take on the bear, that perhaps the goddess Durga periodically has to return to the top of the hill and slay the demon king Mahishasura all over again once in a while. Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you like this episode, please consider liking and subscribing to our channel. Clicking the bell icon lets you know when we release new episodes, and sharing to your social media platform shares the fun. As a valued member of our human network, please be careful out there, especially in bear country.